And last talk for the session is Natu, who is going to be speaking about VibeOps, and he's very opinionated, so I'm looking forward to hear his opinions.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natu, and I'll be talking about this concept of VibeOps. I'm not sure if anyone heard this in the past. So basically VibeOps is just a concept that I and some people online have coined around what is the correct way and I would say opinionated way to handle vibe coding in production systems. But I'll detail during the talk. So my name is Natu. I'm tech lead for AI data and machine learning engineering, and at Sanlam FinTech, it's basically an innovation unit of Sanlam where we're building next generation systems and machine learning systems. And my background is, for the last 10 years, I've been on machine learning engineering at C-level and principal engineer level. And I've also authored a book on machine learning engineering with MLflow that started from a PyCon call PyCon talk back in 2018. So talking about VibeOps. So VibeOps, I've just created a Medium article and started as a 1st of April joke with someone that some of you might know, called a guy called Dimitris Bergman. It's just the head of the biggest MLOps community in the world. So it's basically a way to define what is the correct way to do vibe coding in opinionated way. Not correct, but what we think it's the most reliable way to produce consistent results from AI assisted generated coding. Just starting with some headlines just to ease out, and it's just I think probably everyone remembers this, Mark Zuckerberg saying beginning of the year, AI will replace all mid-level engineers. And then we had Mark Zuckerberg having a few days ago a catastrophic demo. I'm not sure if these things are related, but I think there's something in there. And there are let's say news articles around AI code generated has a lot of flaws, and big LLMs are affected, and we let's say we're faced with these articles around problems with developing LLM. And let's say I work in a very regulated environment, a company with more than 100 years. And let's say, how do we do it correctly and in a way that it's replicable, makes sense? And this is a question that let's say I had a lot of managers posing to me, what's the correct way to use AI and vibe coding? And I went into a tangent into going through research, research that's being published. Everything is pretty new and everything is in flux. So what I'll just run you guys through is some of the research that I've looked at, some of the more recent research, and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of these things. And then also talk also a bit about observations that I've done, that I've seen with my team. So we have been trying to be very AI, completely AI, to develop, and we've been developing things in production and things like that. It's just a reflection more than showing you this is the way. So it's it's a bit, it's not that pretentious, and open to questions as well. And then let's say there's also a lot of articles in reputable sources that are also listing some of the articles that I'll present here, and we can talk about the sources later. About developers sometimes assume that AI would save, but in experiments, when you do a proper RCT, randomized controlled trial, the results are not as exciting as they seem, or this perception. So in some cases, there's 20%, it takes 20% longer to accomplish a task when you do research, correct research on this. What's very different than the perception that a lot of us have. And just like clarifying vibe coding in here, like it's like I'm putting it in a big spectrum, like your normal vibe coding where you have, like, let's say your ChatGPT Pro or your Claude or whatever is the tool that you use to help you generate code. And there's a short-term context or a more advanced tool, like with agentic capabilities like Cursor and all the different more exciting tools like Cloud Code or Open Code or hence. And just going directly to the research. So there's a study by an organization called GitClear. So they study around 1,000 repositories, like mostly from, I think, private repositories. And they analyzed 200 million lines of code over a period of time since AI started being used like more regularly in our code. So this is, for instance, one of the, like, let's say the highlight stats of this study, where the percentage of commits containing a cloned, copied code block, it's just like has increased over the years by analyzing, like, let's say they actually have a tool called GitClear that analyze metrics around code repositories. And there's a bigger study, and I have the source of the study here, from a Stanford unit that does research on software engineers. Like, this was with 100,000 engineers. Sorry, like, there's a confusion here. The 16 open source devs, it's a different study, so that's a mistake in here. But what they saw, and this is confusing because these results between these different studies are very confusing. They don't confirm each other. It also speaks for the very nascent area of vibe coding and AI coding. So the good is that, let's say there are actually 20% gains of productivity. So it's not as high as I was expecting, and there is better performance definitely on greenfield tasks. Sounds correct, and most of the gains are on the popular language. And this also sounds a bit obvious, Python, Java, because LLMs are trained with what the majority of the code that's available online in open source projects. And sometimes they can see 10, 15%. So the bad is that there is actually not a one size fit all solution on all the analysis that they have done. And a lot of these gains that I mentioned on the good are actually offset by rework that is needed on the on the code, and for high complexity brownfield projects, this means changing code that already exists is 0 to 10% gains only, and very unpopular languages like COBOL, Haskell, and things like that. There's basically no productivity gains because the LLMs basically don't know about the languages. And there's also a problem around context window of this large language model. So for very small projects, you do see a lot of performance gains in terms of productivity. But as the project grows, you basically start not seeing them. Yeah, and generally, one of the findings that they had is that developers misjudge their productivity by 30% generally. And they also mentioned that surveys are ineffective predictors of actual productivity. By surveys, I mean, when you report, okay, I'm very productive, and when people actually evaluate the impact of your code in production. And this is a deeper study by an organization called METR. So it's not Stanford, but we're talking it's founded by Google DeepMind top researchers. They work with Anthropic and OpenAI as well on trying to understand what is the actual impact of, now that we are out of the phase of excitement around vibe coding and trying to implement the systems in production, let's say, what does proper research says. And this study was early in the year, so things might have changed. But actually, there was actually a reduction in terms of, like, let's say, developers assumed that they were more productive, but in practice, like, let's say, they were actually, it was a negative productivity because of the rework and all the things that had to happen. And actually, AI increased completion time of the tasks by 19% if you include like all the rework and number of the reviews and all these things. So please don't start crying. There is hope. Yeah, and the perception and reality gap is massive and concerning. So like what we think as developers as being productive, like in practice might not be, like, let's say, as productive as we might think. Yeah, so this is one of the examples of the metrics on this study. And this was like, although it's a small sample, but anyway, like, let's say, it's still like good information. So I'll just go quickly in there because I have many slides and I want to get to the, silver line. Yeah, and also obviously they noticed it here that also the copy and paste problem and the problems with code quality and code churn, like, let's say, there's less code moving from, like, there's less refactoring. It's more like replacement of code. So, and this explains also, like, some of the problems that people are seeing in terms of quality decline on some of the studies. So there's a recent study. This is from, like, let's say, a few weeks ago, DORA 2025. So it's a Google Cloud study. So it's Google. But the study seems to me to be, like, let's say, like relatively sound. Like, let's say, 5,000 engineers, and Google has access to, like, internally and outside Google, they have access to a good number of engineers to do, like, let's say, a proper study on productivity. So adoption is really happening. So the two studies that I mentioned were from, like, early in the year, and this is a more recent study. And so, and AI, according to Google, AI is improving delivery throughput, and but there are some caveats. So, like, let's say, there is a need for platform and creating environments so teams can thrive. Sorry, Laura, how much time do I have? Huh? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so, yeah. And also, like, let's say, managing the value stream, analyzing, like, let's say, that the software that we write, it should be around outcome and not the lines of code that we output. And when teams are, like, let's say, have tooling that, like, allows you to analyze the impact of the code and metrics, like, they see better results from using AI-assisted coding. So there's also, like, but there's still a problem on this DORA report. They had a 2024 report that was a bit more gloom. Okay, a bit more gloom than this one. But, like, and on the 2024 report, they mentioned, like, delivery instability, particularly because of rework and all the things that we mentioned before. And 30% of developers report no trust in AI-generated code, and no measurable impact on reducing friction or burnout of engineers. And AI in some cases can hurt team performance. And these are some horror stories. There's a website called AI Horror Stories. You guys can go, but these are most of them are described in Twitter. So, like, old code, hard-coded secrets available in LLMs. I think everyone is familiar with the stories that like you're able to retrieve, and AI optimizations and on database queries, like, that are, like, just ridiculous, and obviously a lot of security holes as everyone. So from now on is the opinionated component where, like, let's say, what I think, and also, like, let's say, I've done experiments with my team, and I have one team member in here of, like, let's say, using these tools for reals, and also, like, because I can vibe, like, with these tools, like, I've been part of the coding process and trying to observe what happens. So this is very opinionated, not scientific, and this is completely personal opinion of like let's say, what I think is happening and what I think we should do to improve this process. And this is very new. So this is what I think it happens, and this is also related with the research that I've been reading and all these things, is I think context switching costs, particularly because you go into that phase where like there's a lot of code that's written by these systems, and you need to review the code. So there's some context switch, although it's all code, but it was not written by you. So it's like you need to get into the mind of the tool to understand what the tool was doing. So it just like breaks your natural cycle. So I think engineers need to either be educated in a different way or learn new things. And then over-reliance on suggestions. Like, let's say, as humans, we can be biased sometimes with suggestions due to, like, let's say, laziness and things like that. And also, like, let's say, one thing that I've experienced in my team is having these 500 files, pull requests. Okay, and then you start thinking on social cohesion. Will I start a war here, and all these things. So there are these things that, because these tools are very verbose, that yeah, we need to like be very careful and start thinking like how we do software engineering or machine learning engineering in any language with these tools. And one thing that I also, it's a suspicion, and I just want your feedback and questions and challenge as well, is that I think there's some reduced critical thinking, and I'm telling it from a personal perspective as well. So there are pieces of code that the AI has suggested that for some reason worked, and okay, let me just write some tests here. Like, this thing works, but I don't exactly understand why. Okay, it's a deadline. Okay, let's push it. We have tests, so it will be good. So I think the ownership of the code is not the same, and sometimes as humans you can just like reduce some of the critical thinking. But there is one important thing that I think, and this is like, let's say, the core of this concept of VibeOps, because it's a small number. You guys can also be co-founders of the VibeOps movement. I think this is the first time that you're doing a talk on VibeOps. So it's this suboptimal AI dev environment configuration. So the reason for that is simple. Like, let's say I see variation on the engineers. There are engineers that really, they struggle with AI. They can be very verbose. There's a lot of rework, and these are not engineers on my team, please. So my team member. So there's a lot of rework and all these things, but there are engineers that like find ways to be extremely productive, and they can do 10x work with these tools. So like, let's say, even after reading this research, like, let's say, I'm starting to believe that there is a silver line. And I've talked with a couple of engineers. Like, let's just give an example. So I know an engineer. He's an open source engineer, friend of mine, that contributes to a platform called MLX. He kind of produced, like, let's say, uploaded 1,000 machine learning quantized models. So it's just like the most productive person that I see. So, and we see, like, let's say, on our systems, like, let's say, we deliver with a small team, like many systems. So I guess that there is a way to get these things right. And I've also started looking at, like, let's say, these developers that are better, they generally have like a workflow, the development environment workflow, very, very well oiled. Like, they're always in tune with the new things that are in the market. Like, for instance, if we're talking about cursor rules, like the way they update, like, let's say, by working in a very regulated environment, like, there's a lot of standards, like, for instance, like solid standards, Java standards, and all these things. So they have smart ways to introduce all this context engineering on the code that they're writing. So, and I see, these engineers being more productive than simply using the tools. So my bet is that VibeOps can help on like, let's say, if we have a standardized environment, like, this is the way we VibeOps for Python. This is the way we do vibe coding for Java. It's a microservice project. It's a data mesh project. And all the standards are in tune with the tool that you're using. I do see better results. And I'm talking production code. We have deployed at scale systems that were developed in afternoons with these tools. And this is the good part. It's 5 minutes. I'll be quick now. So this is like more or less what I'm saying. But I also think that we are flying blind because like we are leaving some developers behind, and there is a problem in here. Like let's say you see this like pockets of productivity, and then like the average might not be great. And I think that's the result of the studies, like because the studies are like based on averages, and they probably don't look at outliers. And this is what I've already said. So this is the VibeOps concept, but my bet and what we have started implementing is like TDD, but not like there's TLD, like test last development. Like you write the functionality and you then write your test. I think for VibeOps it doesn't work. You really need to do test-driven development, like first test, and the test, in my opinion, should be more like let's say something even more important than the code that runs and does the work. Like the engineer need to have ownership on the test, and so like and the process will be like normal software engineering process. Write failing test, AI generates code, and you validate the code output, and then human refinement. There is a kind of innovation here that I have to confess we have not tested, but it should be directionally correct. So I guess Anthropic and OpenAI are already doing that. I'm calling it VibeOps AI evals. I don't know if anyone is familiar with LLM as a judge, like this professional evals. So in my opinion, you should be using evals to evaluate a VibeOps configuration, where instead of just evaluating your model, like let's say the combination, it's an agentic system in some sense. So the mixture of your configurations, the models that you're using and everything that you're using, and I'll dive deep on like let's say what I consider VibeOps aligned configuration. This should be evaluated as we evaluate agentic systems with this modern, like let's say, tools of evals that are the big thing in the market now from an AI perspective, where you want to ensure that the systems do deliver the right thing. And this is where it will become like a little bit more technical, the evals component, because you need to understand a bit of AI models and evals. But obviously CI/CD, it's basic. So in my opinion, the LLM as judge, your eval system should be in there and should be a combination. This is the VibeOps approach, what we test first, validate before trusting, tooling. And this is not very different of, like, let's say, traditional software engineering. It's just like let's say, using the AI tools to test AI as well, AI code and treating the AI. So probably a lot of you guys are familiar with cursor rules, and now the recent agents MD, that's a generalization of these rules. Basically, advanced prompting for these IDE and agentic systems that help you code. But I'll give you a bit of, I'll pass the slides because we can talk about this later. So this is, for example, an example of a super beefed configuration. So in my opinion, so each company should have, for instance, like I have here, VibeOps Fast API blueprint for cursor, for instance. So, and these tools are they have tons of levers, and we should use these levers to make them produce the right code. I don't know if you can read from there. If not, I can probably open my IDE. So you can create this cursor configurations. Cursor is just an example. This can work in any system, like Cloud Code or anything like that. But it would be like configurations with rules and guidance to the AI and roles that you can use, the agentic system or your tool will use. For instance, for Fast API specifically, you could have rules for, like, let's say, relatively deep rules around like how to use dependency injection, like enforcing pydantic in code generation, and things like that. And but you can go deep, like let's say ADTPX, like let's say if this is your form of like templating technique, or how does your Ginger works and all these things. So as you can see, we're talking like 12 files or 13 files, and also even to write tests, you can actually give instructions to the AI how to refactor tests. And for instance, like we have examples, particularly in the Java world, where you need to use specific techniques or like, let's imagine circuit breakers in Java and for cloud architectures and things like that. You can always build in and combining it with all the, okay, 0 minutes. Okay, but that's fine. But that's the gist, and this is the LLM as judge, the idea that I mentioned before, that we should be using this for, this is an example how this scoring mechanism would work for your VibeOps infrastructure. So it means that like you can enforce one VibeOps structure and you can prove with numbers that the output is correct. Because remember, code is text. So if you have your blueprint, your Java microservice blueprint that does everything according to your own company, this is text. LLMs are perfect to find the distance between the code that you produce and that standard. So you can include this LLM as judge in your CI/CD pipeline. And then with that, we can even, like, let's say, be working on improving the VibeOps structure and mechanism and all these things. But the main point for me is this foobar templates with the correct things, like, can help reduce this variability between outcomes on using VibeCoding. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. And there's a VibeOps manifesto that you guys said.
That was super interesting. I have actually a few questions, but I'll just ask one and then I'll leave it to the floor. So what you were saying at the end now about having it part of your CI/CD pipeline, are you imagining it something like your list of linters? You know, you have your flake 8 and then you have your whatever, and it just runs, and that would be amazing.
But
interesting.
But it does semantic search with your standard blueprint.
Interesting.
And compares it with the code that you produced.
Interesting.
So it can analyze, like, does it follow 3 layers architecture? Does it follow onion architecture?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea. Do you do that, or is that more of an idea at this stage?
It's an idea. So we do it in a different way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we kind of do it, but not using LLM as a judge. We embed in context engineering.
There's so much space for people to do these things, so that's exciting.
But I don't think context engineering is the correct thing. We should use the LLM as a judge.
Cool. Questions? People must have questions because I have other questions.
Oh, feel free, yeah.
But surely other people have questions, or people tired now and need a tea break. Maybe people are tired and need a tea break.
And just a question, this is implemented in production. Like, let's say we're running this, I'm running a team with this production system, running millions of users. And
maybe I'll just ask one other question and then we can have tea, and then people, please do find Natu later and chat to him about things, or stalk him on Discord or LinkedIn or whatever. If you were, what would your advice be to like a team lead or, I don't know, manager on how to avoid the worst kind of pitfalls? Like if you're nervous and you're like, yeah, my team, how can I make sure that nothing goes terribly wrong? What would your advice be?
I think it will be different than traditional software engineering. Like your integration tests should be working, and like I think tests are more important now than ever. Like let's say, and the tests need, like, let's say, people need to have ownership on tests. Like let's say, and like they can take the AI code generating as, like, let's say, as to help their productivity. But testing, and particularly integration tests, like should be, like, let's say, it's non-negotiable these days.
Yeah, that's amazing. Cool, thank you so much. There's a short tea break now, then another session, and then we're going to do lightning talks and closing. Thanks, everyone.